Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Farai Makununu, and I am a former Joshua Light. I tune into the Young and Dynamic every week. I am a student of the African Leadership University, currently studying entrepreneurial leadership with a focus in business investment and trade. So my mission is to impart financial literacy skills in young girls from low income backgrounds to allow them to sustain themselves. I'm very passionate about issues to do with women empowerment and bridging that societal gap between the girl child and the boy child. Now, over the past decade, we have made some progress in women empowerment, in bridging that gap and promoting equality. But however, for every 10 steps we make, we are pushed back 8 steps because of the mindset of most communities. The mindset is something that does not just change overnight. Therefore, we still find girls being culturally, socially, economically segregated. And in some communities, girls are still regarded as second-class citizens. Now, there's a quote by the United Nations which really appealed to me. It's that women are shapers of the future. So to enable this, women have to be empowered, and to empower a woman is to be done through education. But unfortunately, for the girl child, access to education isn't as available as the boy child. Therefore, efforts should be made to bridge that gap and to educate the girl child, because that is a basic right of the girl child as well. So the solution to this problem in education is not simply to increase the enrollment of girls in schools, but the solution is to identify barriers that lead to the high dropout rates of the girls and then address these issues, right? I'm just gonna start sharing my screen. So ensuring that all girls and young women receive a quality education is their human right. Everyday girls face barriers to education caused by poverty, cultural norms and practices, poor infrastructure, violence, and fragility. Attempts should be made to overcome the barriers that are preventing girls from benefiting from the country's investment in education. Now, some of the threats to the girl child education are poverty, violence, child marriage, and gender biases. Poverty, according to the World Bank, is the major factor in hindering the thriving of girls in the education system, because in poverty-stricken communities, we see that even if we were to remove the cost of school fees, there is still things like school uniforms and stationery to consider, which may still be a burden on families from low-income backgrounds, and therefore girls do not go to school because of this. Now, compared to males, girls do not have a higher rate of not attending school because there's still that mentality of viewing girls as domestic people, like they're supposed to stay home, help with the chores, and therefore if you send a girl to school, there's gonna be less time for carrying out the household chores, and yeah, that really deters some people the issue of sanitary services. When faced with having to compare whether to purchase sanitary towels or necessities like food, families tend to choose the latter, and then there's a low attendance for the girls because of not being able to manage their menstrual cycles, and that is a very big challenge that I believe needs to be addressed. Also, in poverty-stricken communities, the girl child is usually commercialized. That is, they see marriage of the girl child as an opportunity to generate money, and therefore marrying off the girls hinders them from going to school. According to research, girls who marry young are more likely to drop out of school and complete fewer years of education than their peers who marry later. 41,000 girls under the age of 18 marry every day. And with child marriage comes child pregnancies. Now the girl has to stay home and is tasked with the duty of taking care of the children and even bearing more children. And that just marks the end of the educational journey for the girl child. Now, I would like to talk about violence as well as a factor hindering the education of the girl child, because in some places we see that girls have to walk for quite a long distance to school, and on the way, they are faced with violence. Even at school, they are faced with violence. Recent data by the World Bank estimates that approximately 60 million girls are sexually assaulted on their way to or at school every year. So this has a very negative impact on their emotional well-being, their physical well-being. Therefore, dropout rates become quite high. Now, the role of gender biases in reinforcing messages that affect girls' ambitions. So when gender biases and stereotypes are enforced in an educational facility by faculty, staff, and peers, the girls, their perceptions of their roles in society, they change because they're told that certain subjects are for males, and their perceptions about their roles in society also change. And then this causes them to shun away from certain subjects. For example, the STEM, the sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics. And also there is disparity in the engagement of the labor market in certain fields when gender biases are reinforced at school. Now, it is very important to develop strategies to promote education of the girl child, because this will give females a chance to boost their economic standing and welfare. And it will also benefit the country at large, because a recent World Bank study estimates that the limited educational opportunity for girls and barriers to completing 12 years of education cost countries between $15 trillion and $30 trillion in lost lifetime productivity and earnings. So I'm gonna suggest some solutions to addressing this disparity in the education system. To get, like I said, the solution is not simply to enroll more girls in schools, but you have to carry out an in-depth analysis into what's causing the girls to drop out of schools in the first place, and create efforts to have a safe learning environment for the girls in schools. So the first solution to increasing quality education availability for the girl child is accessibility. Now, when it comes to the accessibility for the girl child, it is important to provide secure, safe, and well-equipped schools for females. Some of the strategies to improve accessibility include establishing at least one all-girls school in every community, for example. That would go a long way. Schools should have proper security measures, including guards, boundary walls, and barbed wires. And the schools need to be well equipped with desks, chairs, blackboards, and other resources needed to effectively operate a school. Schools must also have proper facilities such as bathrooms for females to use, and provide alternate study options such as online education for distance study programs for girls who cannot attend schools. So all these would go a long way in increasing accessibility of education to the girl child. Now, the second solution I'd like to propose is awareness. Just promoting awareness, because like I said, I think our biggest challenge is mindsets of the community. Some people still thinking that it is not vital to educate the girl child, and this needs to be addressed. Along with accessibility, it is vital to raise awareness regarding the importance of the girl child education. Many families do not realize the importance of educating their daughters. And in some cases, girls are still seen as objects of commercialization and people who should just stay home and be concerned with domestic tasks. But we should educate the economy on the value of educating the girl child. Now, some of the strategies to improve our community awareness and widespread awareness on the values of educating the girl child is launching awareness initiatives in rural areas. Awareness must be spread to uneducated families who do not understand the value of education. Also, providing incentives to families to encourage them to send their daughters to school would really go a long way in getting them to actually send their daughters to school. I would like to give you a quote from Michelle Obama that it says, "When girls are educated, their countries become stronger and more prosperous. If you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation." So just to sum up the solutions, the strategy for promoting girl child education must combine awareness and accessibility. Families must understand the importance of female education. Then they should be provided an opportunity to send their daughters to accessible and safe schools. Thank you. And now I'd like to call upon Christian Okeke, who is going to be talking about the opportunities for the girl child in the STEM field.
Sorry for the earlier mishap. I am Christian Okeke, a student of the African Leadership University, studying software engineering. As we all know, today is the International Day of Girl Child, and I'm honored to be invited to speak on the opportunities for the girl child in the STEM field, in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Please permit me to share my screen to give a little demonstration to help us understand All right. So I would like to start by a TED Talk given by Chimamanda Adichie, one of her popular TED Talks, where she said that we all should be feminists. And in that TED Talk, Adichie made a very salient point that in the olden days, leaders are chosen based on physical strength. But now that our world has changed, the people who are leaders nowadays are people with creativity, people with innovation and productivity to drive our economy. They are the people that are supposed to lead. So what Adichie was saying in that sense is the kind of gender imbalance that we experience in our societies nowadays. And it is seen in every aspect of life, though recent efforts have been made to, to close in the gender gap, especially in the STEM fields. Like in the olden days, leaders are known by their physical strength. You go to war and many other things. But nowadays, we don't fight physical wars. We fight creative wars, technological wars. And popular research says that girls or women are as much likely to be creative as men. So this gender equality comes into play because the eras of physical strength has gone, and now what we need is creativity. And we know that a greater percentage of the world's population are females. So it means that we are not utilizing this greater percentage of population because of the gender bias. And we understand, especially in the STEM field, which are male dominated. So how do we encourage girls and women to play a part in these STEM fields? STEM field undoubtedly is one of the leading economy of the world, the engine of the world's economy. So if you look at the statistics here, you see that girls and women are systematically tracked away from science and math. I remember in secondary school, any woman that does not do, any girl that does not do well in math, that does well in math, is basically seen as a threat to men or somewhere man-like. So such kind of gender bias is what discourages women or girls in the STEM fields. And clearly, STEM field is one of the highest paying jobs nowadays in the workforce. The world is going digital. So there is need for more, for us to bridge the gap, the gender gap in the STEM fields. If you look at the statistics, the women in STEM occupations, you see that engineers and architects have the lowest percentage, as well as the computer and mathematical occupations. So how do we, or what are the underlying causes of this? First, it can be traced to various causes, which number one is our environment and our culture. The various ways in which we have unconsciously, because nowadays we have begun to realize the need to include women, the gender equity in our education, having more women play a part or having more women getting educated. But still, there is this unconscious bias, implicit bias, scientists say, that we don't even know that we are biased towards genders. And sometimes we are not to be blamed because it has been entrenched in our culture. We grew up with it. It's something that we know right from childhood that we take it as normal. For example, any woman that says that, or any girl that aspires to study engineer is being looked down upon, like, who goes for which girl goes for engineering job, especially things like mechanical engineering, construction engineering, which in a way requires more physical strength. But what we need in this field is creativity. We don't need physical strength. Even in physical strength, women nowadays are challenging men in terms of physical strength. So there are problems, these are problems that we want to solve in the STEM fields. And I am glad that certain NGOs and governments are now making attempts to solve these problems. So there were questions about why there are few women in the STEM field, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And 12% of women study engineers, whereas 26% study computing professional. And why this STEM field is important is because I said earlier, it's one of the highest paying jobs nowadays. And even research found out that even if there are 12% of engineers and 26% of computing professionals who are women, they are still being paid less than men for the same position. For example, in executive positions, a male executive in a STEM field earns more than a female executive. Not because the male executive or there is any special thing about, but because of this unconscious bias. And that is where I will lay my point today. Sometimes we don't nearly see it as bias, right? We feel that normally a woman should not earn more than a man. And that is something that Adichie was talking about in her TED talk called "We Should All Be Feminists." You know, so according to research from AAW.org, the reason why there are few women in science and tech starts right from kindergarten, where women are told not to aspire. You can aspire, but don't aspire as much. That is how the research puts it. The narrative that women hear, you can aspire to be great, but don't aspire to be too great in order to avoid being a threat to men, which is something ridiculous in our world nowadays, because creativity does not know gender. So a woman who is more creative is likely to be not to be taken serious in the science field. So for example, in the math, any woman who knows math, like I said before, poses a threat to men. Or for example, in high schools, these are things we see in a high school setting. I remember in my high school, math is something that is being dominated by males. Not because the girls doesn't like math or because they doesn't know math, but because of the system, because of the environment, because of the narrative they hear every day. They feel like it is not our core to go into these fields, right? Math field, physics, or any science courses. So they tend to go more towards more. If you come to a science class in a typical American secondary school, it's well dominated by males. Even though there are concerted efforts now, we have begun to change our mindset, but still male continues to dominate. So how do we solve these things? I think the Farai has pointed out the various solutions, which has become on changing our mindsets, cultivating a sense of belonging. We need more information out there for everybody, not just for us, but in our schools, in our workplaces, in our employers, because the research has that employers in the STEM field are more likely to take men serious than women. So that's something ridiculous. So we need to get more information out there, create awareness, and give women that sense of belonging, that they belong as well in the engineering field, in the STEM field. Because of the mindset of, oh, I don't belong here, I belong maybe in the arts and humanities. No, it's not supposed to be so. We need to give them that sense of belonging, and then changing the environment for them. We start at the kindergarten to train kids about gender equality in order to avoid this inherent implicit bias. So these trainings are what should start in the family. I remember Adichie asking, in a family of 2 boys and 2 girls, and everybody is hungry in the family, why would they tell the girl child to go and cook for everybody? You should be able to tell the boy child to go to join the kitchen as well. So these are the things that we unconsciously create, maybe that women Girls belong in the kitchen, while boys are the ones that sort out the creative things. So these are the various ways we establish the norms in our homes and right from kindergarten, and we grow up with it. So we see it as normal, but truly they are not normal. They are a clear bias that we have getting used to. Another thing is combating stereotypes. Of course, our societies is dealing with stereotypes in various forms. So we need to combat all sorts of narratives that hinders the girl child education, the ability for the girl child to aspire as much as the boy child. All the stereotypes, all the narratives that have beguiled our children, we need to change the narrative, emphasize social relevance, that women are socially relevant as much as men. So these are the things we need to focus on in order to, create an equal ground for girls' participation in the STEM field. Encourage as much girls as we can to participate or to do better in maths. The research has it that if you tell a girl that she is likely to do better, or she is likely to do as much good as a boy in maths, the girl will be inspired to take on the challenge. Because we all have equal creativity. It's just the narrative that gives us the inferiority complex when it comes to the gender topics. So solving the equation, the variables, you see that, like what I have said before, only 21% of engineering majors and 19% of computer science majors are women. And the research also has it that in secondary school, about 50% of girls aspire to study STEM courses. But they enter university, eventually the number continues to drop. And by the time they graduate, you have even less than 21% of women graduating from engineering, while less than 90% graduate from computer science major. And even though this percentage graduates, a greater percentage are less likely to pursue these majors that they study because of the very difficulty they consider, because people are less likely to take them serious because they are female. But these things are not what is required. What is required nowadays in the workplace is creativity, productivity, and innovation. So this underscores the need for us to, balance the gap, the gender gap, when it comes to science and technologies, which are the bedrock of our current economy. So I believe I have run through everything. Key factors as well in gender gaps are math anxiety, which I've said a bit. Teachers who are predominantly women often have math anxiety. They pass on to girls, which is something I have been saying. They often grade girls harder for the same work and assume that boys need to work harder. So these are some things that have been proven by research and some data that we have to follow, to address these issues. Of course, STEM is a male-dominated field, and the need to bring in more female participation in the STEM field has never been more imminent. And the theme for this year's celebration of International Day of Girl Child states that our time is now, our rights and our future. So there is no better time to engage in these topics more than now. We need to take action. We need to put information out there. We need to take concrete steps in our schools, in our workplaces, and every other place in order to encourage or bridge the gender gap in our society. Thank you very much for listening.
No, thank you, Christian. That will be all from us.
All right.
Please
thank you as well.
Remember to please like the video and subscribe to Young and Dynamic, because there's awesome content every week.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to contribute to today's discussion.